Melly was involved in a multi-inmate fight inside the day room of his area unit and was given a DR for his role in the fight. October 2020, placed on a room restriction for refusing to...
In February 2020, Melly was written up for his involvement in a fight with multiple inmates inside the day room of his housing unit. Later, in October of that same year, he was placed on room restriction after refusing to return to his cell because he was attempting to hide while using the phone. Now there is renewed momentum surrounding efforts to have the rapper released while he awaits retrial for the deaths of 2 childhood friends. A new lawsuit claims he is being subjected to cruel and inhumane treatment behind bars. However, media outlets are reporting that Melly's career is effectively finished, especially since his witness tampering case has now begun. This trial is separate from the original murder charges, meaning that even if he avoids conviction in that case, a guilty verdict for tampering alone could result in a life sentence. Prosecutors allege he forced his ex-girlfriend, Mariah Hamilton, to leave the United States before his 2023 trial began. Mariah Hamilton recently spent her first day in Broward County Jail, despite having no prior arrest record. Border Patrol agents detained her at Miami International Airport after she arrived on an international flight. Court documents show she had been ordered to testify during Melly's first trial in 2023, but failed to appear. Authorities attempted to contact her repeatedly through phone calls and home visits, but she could not be located. Toward the end of 2025, she reportedly became homesick and decided to return to the U.S. using her identification to book a flight-triggered law enforcement alerts. While waiting for her luggage, officers approached her and took her into custody. Reports say Mariah knows critical details about what happened to Sackchaser in juvie, though prosecutors mainly need proof that Melly pressured her to leave the country, which would qualify as witness tampering and carry a life sentence. After her arrest, Mariah reportedly endured harsh conditions in jail, with some claiming guards encouraged other inmates to intimidate her to push her into cooperating. During her first court appearance, the judge offered her a deal. If she agreed to testify against Melly, she would be released. She accepted. Shortly afterward, she posted on Facebook thanking her supporters and saying everything was part of God's plan. Investigators also uncovered troubling evidence from her iCloud account that allegedly showed Melly using jail phones to persuade her not to testify, which is considered witness tampering. This offense alone could result in life imprisonment, regardless of whether Melly is convicted in the murder case. The state has now filed 6 new charges against Melly and 2 other individuals, including tampering with a witness, directing criminal activity, conspiracy, and unlawful use of communication devices, several of which carry potential life sentences. This witness tampering case stands separate from the original charges involving Sackchaser and juvie. Juvie's father has publicly accused Melly of secretly using jail phones to pressure Mariah into leaving the country before trial. He described a complicated system of passing notes, relaying messages through multiple people, and using coded language, suggesting extreme efforts to prevent testimony. Meanwhile, Melly's co-defendant, Bortland, has reportedly accepted a plea deal and agreed to cooperate. According to reports, he pleaded to accessory after the fact and will serve about 10 years, followed by probation, minus time already served. Prosecutors have already requested his deposition. This development leaves Melly as the primary defendant, with both Mariah and Bortland now available to testify against him. Legal analysts explain that Bortland's plea requires him to provide a factual account of what happened, which could confirm the crime occurred and undermine Melly's defense. Experts have emphasized that an accessory after the fact plea requires acknowledging that a crime took place and that the person helped cover it up. This is damaging to Melly because his defense has centered on denying that the shooting happened inside the car and suggesting it was a drive-by. Once Bortland describes events from his perspective, including how he assisted afterward, it strengthens the prosecution's narrative. Observers believe Bortland is likely to fully cooperate after spending years in jail awaiting trial and facing the possibility of life in prison, especially since his deal could allow him to return home within a few years. Many expected him to cooperate sooner, but his decision now significantly weakens Melly's position. Prosecutors believe Bortland's testimony will clarify how the incident occurred and place responsibility squarely on Melly, particularly if he confirms the shooting happened inside the vehicle rather than from outside. Despite these developments, Melly's legal team has attempted to secure his release by filing a lawsuit against the Broward Sheriff's Office, claiming he has been subjected to cruel and unusual punishment. The lawsuit seeks his immediate release, alleging he has been held in freezing conditions, denied edible food, and deprived of meaningful human contact. It also claims he has not been allowed to see or speak with family members for 3 years, and that his phone and mail privileges were revoked over a year ago. His mother has spoken publicly about the situation, expressing heartbreak and helplessness, and arguing that her son has not been convicted of any crime yet is treated worse than inmates who have already been sentenced. She says officials are withholding his mail and preventing communication, and that despite attempts to bring these issues before a judge, the jail operates under its own rules with little accountability. Public reactions to Melly's situation have been divided. Some rappers and supporters have expressed sympathy and called for his release, saying he has been incarcerated too long without a conviction. Others, like Charleston White, have argued that harsh treatment is deserved when someone is accused of taking lives and that complaining about jail conditions is inappropriate in such circumstances. Still, some figures have expressed concern for Melly's mother, noting her stress and emotional toll. While his team pushed for bond or release based on alleged mistreatment, prosecutors presented evidence to counter these efforts. They introduced messages from Melly's account on the night of the crime, including one in which he allegedly admitted involvement, followed by a smiling emoji. They also played video footage showing Melly dancing with Portland just hours after the incident, suggesting a lack of visible grief despite the deaths of close friends. Additional evidence presented included surveillance footage showing Melly entering the back left seat of the Jeep shortly before the shooting. Court documents state that bullet trajectories traveled from left to right, supporting the claim that the shots originated from that seat. A witness, identified as the mother of one of the victims, testified that her son entered the back right seat and that Melly entered the back left seat. Prosecutors argue this aligns with forensic evidence. Melly's lawyers countered by pointing out that the firearm allegedly used was never recovered, making it impossible to conduct definitive ballistic testing, which they say supports the drive-by shooting theory. However, authorities also revealed troubling discoveries from a search of Portland's home, including handwritten notes detailing jurors' seating arrangements and physical descriptions, raising suspicions of attempted jury tampering during Melly's original trial. Those notes led investigators to believe Portland may have planned to locate or influence jurors outside the courtroom. Critics called this careless, noting how incriminating it was to keep such information at home. Observers have suggested that if Portland did reach a juror during the first trial, it could explain why one juror refused to vote guilty, resulting in a mistrial. Now that Portland is cooperating with prosecutors, Melly no longer has allies in the case. Authorities also intend to use Portland's testimony to explain why Frito Bang picked Melly up after the shooting. Prosecutors highlighted digital evidence showing Melly sending location pins early that morning, asking to be picked up after his location changed slightly, suggesting movement away from the crime scene. This, they argue, strengthens their timeline and supports the claim that Melly was involved directly in the incident. Prosecutors are also attempting to introduce social media evidence to suggest Melly had gang affiliations, including photos with Young Thug, use of certain slang, and hand signs associated with street organizations. They argue that if they can prove the crime was motivated by gang activity, Melly could face enhanced sentencing. Although Melly's lawyers advised against allowing this evidence, he insisted on proceeding, stating in court that he did not care because he believed prosecutors could not prove gang involvement. This marked the first time he publicly went against his legal team's advice. Prosecutors explained that such evidence would not only affect sentencing, but could also establish motive and context. Meanwhile, they introduced testimony from a former associate who claimed Melly had once visited King Von seeking advice on how to kill people. The witness suggested that Melly implied he had killed 2 friends without explicitly stating it, claiming they were attempting to extort him. Altogether, the case against Melly continues to intensify as prosecutors build multiple lines of evidence, including witness tampering allegations, digital communications, forensic analysis, surveillance footage, and now cooperation from his co-defendant, with Mariah Hamilton agreeing to testify and Portland entering a plea deal that requires him to provide a factual account. Melly's legal position has weakened significantly. At the same time, his lawsuit over jail conditions has drawn attention to his treatment behind bars and sparked debate over the fairness of his confinement while awaiting trial. Supporters argue he deserves humane treatment and due process, while critics maintain that the seriousness of the accusations justifies strict measures. As the witness tampering trial moves forward alongside preparations for retrial in the murder case, Melly faces the possibility of life imprisonment even without a murder conviction, making the coming proceedings some of the most consequential of his life and career.